welcome everybody to the second webinar of our Spring Family Engagement Strategy Showcase. I would like to remind everyone that this session is going to be recorded and will be posted on our website. So if you do not wish to be recorded, please turn off your camera at this moment. If you would like to ask our presenters any questions, please place your questions in the chat box and they will answer them at the end of their presentation. Any technical assistance or questions, you can directly message myself. I'm Angela Mactian, the project lead of the Hawaii Statewide Family Engagement Center, or you can directly message Lisa Ng, who is our project manager of the Hawaii Statewide Family Engagement Center, in the chat box if you need any technical assistance or support. So further ado, I would love to welcome, and I'm just really excited to introduce today's guest speakers from the Parent Institute for Quality Education, also known as PIQE. Engaging families in education for over 30 years. They will explain their best practices model implemented by schools across the country. With their direct experience with the program myself, I know how successful this program is and when it comes to building partnerships between schools and families. Before I turn it over to the speakers, I would like to share more information about them and their background. Today we have in welcoming Elizabeth Zamudio is a senior education professional with more than 2 decades of experience in nonprofit sector. As the vice president of the program development at PIQE, Elizabeth is responsible for monitoring the overall quality of PIQE's programs at each of the 8 regional offices in California. She leads a team of PIQE professional development trainers and curriculum writers. Prior to joining PIQE, Elizabeth served as the Vice President of Programs at Fulfillment Fund, overseeing all programmatic activity, including the delivery of Fulfillment Fund's college access curriculum, college counseling, college success efforts, scholarships, and alumni programming. Prior to joining Fulfillment Fund, Elizabeth worked at La Jolla Marymount University's Controller's Office, supporting first-generation college-going students in navigating financial aid and scholarships. Elizabeth serves on the advisory board at Saba Charitable Foundation and as a programs committee member with the Andy Vargas Foundation. A first-generation college graduate herself, Elizabeth holds a bachelor's degree and master's degrees from La Jolla Marymount University, is a graduate of USC's nonprofit Resilient Leaders Program, and is currently a doctoral candidate in organizational leadership at Pepperdine University. Also joining Elizabeth Zamudio today as a guest speaker is Mildred Gaines. She is an expert advisor with over 30 years of education and business coaching experience. In 2001, Mildred joined the PIQE team and currently serves as PIQE's Best Practice Director. She is responsible for ensuring that school districts outside of California are trained in PIQE's best practices to successfully implement and sustain family engagement programming. Mildred has also served as one of PIQE's executive directors, where she was responsible for planning and leading the organization's operations and programs in several regional offices. Prior to joining PIQE, Mildred worked as a financial planner, preparing comprehensive financial plans for union members and their families with respect to college tuition, retirement, and investments. She also has 15 years of experience in client relations and corporate training. Mrs. Gaines received her bachelor's in psychology with a minor in business administration from Chapman University in 1999. So with further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our guest speakers. Again, welcome and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Angela. And it's so great to be with everyone here today. We are very excited to share about the work that we're doing with PIQE and what we've learned over this last year and a half, right? About virtual delivery and engaging families in a virtual environment. And so to get us started, we'd like to start with a few questions. So if you will indulge us in a quick Slido activity. And if you're not familiar with Slido, you can put your phone up to the QR code on the screen and it'll take you directly to the site. But you can also go to slido.com and enter number 6421. And that will take you to our question today. So we want to know, what was for breakfast today? We're in California and it's almost midday for us here, but we know that it's bright and early for all of you joining us this morning. So please tell us, what did you have for breakfast? Coffee cake. I love it. Oatmeal with peanut butter. Anfan. What is anfan? I'm not familiar. Soft-boiled eggs. Lots of oatmeal. Oatmeal in the group today. Lots of coffee. Yes.
Anpan is a sweet Japanese pastry filled with sweet red bean paste.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. I have to try that. Great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to our next question. Thank you. I love that coffee is in everywhere. So how prepared do you feel to effectively engage with families? Are you a little nervous? Absolutely 100% confident, bring all the parents in and families in, or unsure, I'm not sure, still feel like I could use a little more help. So a little nervous, absolutely bring them all in. Yeah, good. And we always like to start with an exercise like this, just to gauge where we're at in the room and also acknowledge our own feelings, right? Anonymously, and acknowledge where we're at. How are we feeling? Do we honestly feel that we have all the tools at our disposal to be able to engage with parents and families? And so this is really great. Thank you. Thank you for participating. All right. So, Angela did a great job of introducing both Mildred and I. Again, my name is Elizabeth. I'm the Vice President of Program Development, and I'm joined by Mildred Gaines, who's our Director of Best Practices. We're very excited to be with you today.
Elizabeth, I hate to interrupt. Could we do the poll really quick to see the folks that are joining us today?
Yes.
Okay. All right, folks, we just wanted to see who's up in this webinar with us. So please indulge me for a second and answering the poll of what role, identifying your role, and you can select more than one. And then we'd like to see what island folks are on joining us today. Wow. So we have administrators, service providers, parents and family members with us today. Oh, shout out to the Big Island and Maui, Molokai, Kauai, and other folks joining us. And of course, Oahu. Awesome. So we have a really great, diverse crowd here with us today. Okay, I'll go ahead and end the poll. Thank you.
Great. That is so helpful to be able to see who's in the room today. So half the group service providers. Wonderful. We love service providers. We're service providers. So thank you for being here with us.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Well, we have a full agenda planned for you today. Today, you'll learn more about PIQE. You'll have a broad overview of our programming. Also, the evidence and the information that we have collected in the past year. And of course, we'll share our best practices within family engagement with you and our programming. And at the end, like Angela mentioned, we'll be taking on any questions that you may have for us. Okay, let us get started. With PIQE, our mission is to provide families with the knowledge and skills to partner with schools and communities to ensure that children achieve their full potential. We take the parents through a process, a learning process. So when we are with families receive information on how to navigate the school system, becoming familiar with the school system that their children are learning in. We also share information on how to collaborate with teachers, counselors, and principals, and the importance of having that relationship with school personnel. During our process, we also ensure that families understand or have the information to encourage college attendance as early as kindergarten. You'll see later on in our presentation the different programming and how that comes into play. We also ensure that families understand and have the tools to support their children's emotional and social development and how to create a supportive home learning environment for their students. Since 1987, PIQE has impacted over 2 million students, and this has been done by engaging over 721,000 parents within our programming, our 9-week parent engagement program. And we cater to what is happening within each school district to ensure that we're reaching families in the languages that they're most comfortable in. So our programming has been utilized in 16 different languages. In California, we are the direct service providers to the school districts, which you know as complex areas. We are currently working with over 128 school districts, and we are spanning throughout the United States in 13 states. Our programming, and you'll see during our data presentation today too, the effectiveness of the program, or the longitudinal studies that have been done on the program prove the effectiveness of the program, where we see that 80% of our students were graduating from high school. After the parents go through the program, we see that number at 96%. The same with college enrollment. We normally see about 40% of our students reported enrolling into post-secondary education. After the parents go through our programming, we see that number at over 70%.
Great.
Our program is also evidence-based, and Ellie will lead us with that information.
Great. So we do use evidence-based, research-based practices to inform our curriculum and our programming. So we just want to give a quick overview. We know that the group has participated in the dual capacity building framework training. And so we do use the dual capacity framework within not only our pedagogy, but also within our framework. And so we also use Dr. Ann Henderson's research, which she's the author of A New Wave of Evidence. And she has researched on the collaboration between schools and community partners and families, and engaging those connections to increase student achievement. So what is the impact when one of those three are not fully aligned? So we used her research there. And then also Dr. Joyce Epstein, who is currently still a researcher and professor at Johns Hopkins School of Education. And she really conceptualized the 6 key types of family engagement. And we use her work also in our framework throughout our entire curriculum and programming. And you'll see towards the end, we'll share a little bit more about our specific programs, but mainly in our signature family engagement program, we look at the Trinity, the school, the family, and the community partnership. Then also Dr. Susan Choi, her research is primarily based on the steps to college. And so what steps do students need? What supports do they need to ensure that they successfully matriculate onto college? And this is especially important, excuse me, with our high school students. But as Mildred mentioned earlier, we not only start in high school and middle school, but also as early as kindergarten and preschool. We're sharing college-going knowledge and information with families so that they can better be equipped to support their students to go along this college journey. And then, of course, Dr. Karen Mapp in her dual capacity building framework for family and school partnerships. And I'm just going to dive in very quickly because this is a really good framing of why we do the work that we do and how we approach the work. It's very much grounded in the dual capacity building framework and understanding what the challenges are between educators, the school community, families, and parents, and why do we have challenges? So sometimes we find that there are challenges with our educators who may not have been exposed to strong examples of effective family engagement, or who did not receive pre-service training or ongoing in-service training once in the field. Or some educators may not see that partnership is an essential practice. We know that that's not true for those of us here today because you're here, but there are some educators who may see that it's not an essential practice. And also some educators may have developed a deficit mindset. Where on the other hand, families, they may not have been exposed to strong examples of family engagement as well, right? Or they've had a negative past experience with schools and educators. A lot of times families, maybe through their own childhood experiences, did not have a favorable experience in schools. And so they pass this along to their children as well. or aren't as engaged with the school because of that. Sometimes families may not feel invited to contribute to their child's education. They may not feel welcome on campus. They may not feel welcome in the classroom. And so this may also be a barrier for families. And sometimes families may feel disappointed, unheard, or unvalued. And so we're going to talk about some effective strategies that we found in our work that may help mitigate some of these challenges. And please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, and we will be sure to answer your questions at the end of the presentation today. All right, so some best practices in family engagement. So effective strategies that we've observed is under three main areas. First is clarity and consistency. Our families have really thrived on receiving consistent, clear communication. So providing weekly or biweekly communication schedules, speaking to families in a consistent manner. So understanding every Friday, you'll receive a recap of the week, or every Monday, the teacher will be sending out a newsletter stating what the students will be doing in the classroom that week. It also is really helpful for families to understand what the expectations are, not only of their students, but also of the families. And being able to provide not only the clear expectations, but opportunities for feedback and follow-up. Becoming available for families to be able to provide feedback on whether sometimes in elementary school, our students may be overwhelmed with too much work or independent work, or maybe there's questions that the parents have, especially in our virtual learning environment where our parents and families are really serving as additional educators in the home. So being available for office hours outside of the school hours. We know sometimes the school hours are very challenging for families because they're not able to leave work or take a break to be able to engage in a phone call or in a meeting or come to school. In the case of in-person, to be able to meet with teachers and educators. And so being flexible on opportunities for families to be able to communicate with educators. Also, the second point, which is also a very key point for us at PIQE, is creating a welcoming environment. Time and time again, we survey our families, and the number one indicator for families is that they don't feel comfortable in the classroom. They don't feel comfortable in the school environment. And so we put the onus on the school community to create this welcoming environment so that our families do feel welcome, that they do feel as if they are part of the school community. So recognizing the holistic needs of the family is really important in creating this welcoming environment. So not only looking at what does the student need academically, but looking at the student as and the family as a whole. What other resources are available that we can offer the students and the families? What, especially right now, are there social emotional supports that we can provide for the students and their family to be supported through the trauma that they're experiencing through COVID-19? So providing the district and community resources, and also maybe accessibility to someone that they can speak to, a mental health provider, or resources on campus, such as a counselor on campus, providing this information so that it is readily available. A lot of times we've seen on school district websites, even us as professionals, we're digging through the sites to try to find information and resources for families, but making it readily accessible so that families can easily access the information and are able to utilize the resources that are available. And then third is creating a differentiated response. And in this, we work with a lot of families in several different languages. As you saw in the beginning of our presentation, we have delivered our curriculum in 16 languages. And so the differentiated response is really adapting our communication to the family's preferred language and modality. So not only are we communicating via the preferred home language, but also whether it's in email, phone call, text, social media, whatever the family's preferred modality is, that will be the most effective use of our time to be able to communicate with families. And at PIQE, we are still using all of these modalities. A lot of times, some will ask us, are you really calling parents, picking up the phone and calling parents? Yes, we do. We still call parents because this is actually the most effective way to communicate with parents. Not everyone is on email, not everyone is on text, or if they do see a text, how many times have we read a text and said, okay, I'll get to that later, right? And you dismiss it and you look at it later, or maybe you don't go back to it because we, of course, have a million things going on. But when you get a phone call, our phones don't ring that often. And so when you receive a phone call from a live person on the other end, and you actually have a conversation with that person, it really does make a difference and it leaves a lasting impression. And so being able to communicate with families via phone, via text, via social media, whatever their preferred modality is a really great tool that we've learned in this past year. And then also the frequency, the modality, and the amount of needs need to be differentiated for different families. So not all families will be open to a phone call, right? Some parents work very different working hours, and it may not be feasible for parents to have a phone call. Some of our parents maybe are only available, they may work a graveyard shift, and so they're available during the day when we're in the classroom. And so that may not be feasible for phone calls, but there are different outlets. So if we can use email, maybe some parents prefer email because they're not available via phone call, then that's great. But understanding what those approaches are for each of our family members. And then we have some examples here. So one note, as we mentioned with resources, making them easier to find, putting them front and center so that parents can easily access the resources. So understanding what we've done here is put together on a computer or laptop, this is what it'll look like. If it's on a tablet or a mobile phone, this is where you access it. So one of our resource guides actually has the logo of the application, a description of the application, a screenshot of the application so that parents become more familiar before they even set foot on the app or downloading it, even walking them through how to download the application, which we did with Zoom. We walked through our parents, we picked up the phone, called them, and stayed on the phone with them and walked them through the process of downloading the Zoom application. Also, breaking down with the effective communication strategies, one of the things when we started the distance learning is we had to break down the terminology for our families. Because what's synchronous, what's asynchronous, I don't understand. It's overwhelming, a lot of information coming at us at the same time. And so we wanted to break this down and make it digestible and be able to answer their questions. And of course, we translated this information for our families, but we also put it into visual cues. So we not only gave the terms, the definitions, but we also gave them a visual cue for those who may not have different learning styles. And so for our visual learners, we had an example here of synchronous versus asynchronous. What does that mean? And so we wanted to explain that to our families.
We do this, thank you, Ellie. We do this through our programming, and you'll see that in our curriculum, the curriculum has been designed to guide parents through an empowerment process. There are 3 key elements that you will see across the board in all of our curriculums. And number 1, we raise the family's level of concern regarding their children's education. We do this by providing just real life examples of what's happening with the students at that particular school district, at that particular level, whether it's statistics of reading levels or graduation rate, but we raise that level of concern. Then we provide families with relevant information that they can put into practice to help their students succeed. And then, of course, we move the parents into positive action. We do this through our, if we can go to the next slide, we do this through we best do this through our 9-week parent engagement program, but you see it through all of our curriculum. In our parent engagement program, we start out with a planning session where we share with the families what the program looks like, and that is where we do share that information is going to raise the level of concern for the families. But then we leave them secure, knowing that we will be back, and we invite them to 6 core weekly classes where they receive information on how to navigate the school system, how to connect and engage with teachers and school personnel, how to become part of that system and have that learning environment at home that I mentioned at the beginning of our session today. Then we start moving them into action. They have a dialogue. We set aside time for them to have a dialogue with school administration. Counselors join us at that time as well, where they're able to ask informed questions. So the questions become more of what they have learned through the 6 weeks they put into practice during the principal's dialogue. And we see that relationships start building within the school site. And then finally, we have our last session, which is a graduation. For the families, this is also the session where we have seen that this is the first time that we've had some family members graduate from anything. So it becomes exciting and emotional for the families to complete the workshops.
And our family engagement program is grounded in the participatory action research. And so all of it is moving towards our families becoming fully engaged within the school community and within their own civic communities as well. And our curriculum is designed for 70% family engagement and 30% of PIQE engagement. We don't want to be talking to parents the entire time. We want our parents engaging in the conversation and leading the discussion. So some examples of our programming: we have our signature family engagement and education. And so this is our signature program. It's a 9-week in-person session. Online, it's 8 weeks. And this is where, as Mildred just mentioned, it's taking our parents through the process, all the way from an orientation session, a planning session, through the curriculum, a principal's dialogue, and then graduation. And then next we have our social and emotional learning. And this is a really great and impactful program for our families to understand the connection between healthy and social emotional habits and skills at home and how that correlates with academic success for their students. And this is a 7-week session that's also offered online. And then our early childhood development program. This is for our pre-K and kindergarten parents and families who are preparing their children for entering the school system. And so we discuss early childhood development topics such as brain development, language development, and I'm sorry, this is for 0 to 5, ages 0 to 5. So our families who have very young children and preparing them to enter into an academic setting. We also have our family literacy, our preschool to 3rd grade. And this one is very focused on literacy skills at home. Because we know that literacy is such an important component for students' academic success. And so we want to enhance as many skills as we can early on in a child's education, not only with the student, but also with the family's focus, so that families understand that language is all around us and there's an easy and effective way to be able to incorporate language development in our everyday tasks. And then STEM. STEM, we know that there is a large deficit of diversity within the STEM field. And so we really want to build a strong foundation for our students and families in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics as early as possible. And so our STEM focuses on not only what is STEM, many of our families are not clear on what STEM is, but then also how do we support our students to be interested in STEM, and then also what careers are available for students. We know that studies show that 46% of careers that students in school now will be engaged in haven't even been created that will be in the STEM field. And so it's an important area for us to focus on. Then we also have our parent leadership program. And this is a program that is a favorite amongst our school administrators. And we begin to develop the leadership components of our parents who have already gone through our family engagement program. And now they're learning how to strengthen as parent advocates on the school campus to strengthen that parent and school community connection. And our civic engagement program develops the understanding of political and civic processes so that our parents can become active members within the community. And we have parents who have run for office even after graduating from PIQE. Recently, we had someone who was recently elected the mayor of a small town in California. So we do have really great success through our civic engagement program. We also have programming for educators, professional development for educators. So one is our educator workshop, which helps to strengthen the teacher, school, administrator collaboration with families and learning how to do so or enhancing what you're already doing and working effectively with families and communities. And then also our culturally responsive family engagement. So deepening our own understanding of cultures and awareness of implicit biases and how that affects our relationships with families, with parents, and with students. So this is a really important curriculum that we've begun working with educators on to help address some of the implicit biases, acknowledging our own implicit biases and how they manifest in our work with students and families.
Yes, all of the programming that was just mentioned in California, we're the direct providers for these programming. Outside of California, we have what we call as our licensed school districts. Since 2002, we have been working with over 13 states and Mexico City, where we support school districts and we train on our best practices. When a district is a licensed school district partnering with us, that partnering school district receives our signature parent engagement program. That's the K through 12 curriculum. Those are 3 different curriculums in Spanish and in English. That is our 9-week parent engagement program or family engagement program where we meet with families once a week. There are 2 programmings. One is for the virtual delivery, and then we have in-person delivery as well. The program or the licensing also comes with our program manuals, training for and it's important for us to ensure that you're able to sustain the program. So we do a lot of training of your facilitators and recruiters, so much so that we have our 1-year coaching. I'm honored to be that coach for the school districts where I work with you for a whole year to implement the program and to ensure that the program is successful where you are. And we support you with data collecting as well. In partnership with PIQE, the school district will have to assign a primary point person that I would work with to roll out the program and to build the capacity of the school district. That person will be responsible for continuing to build a pipeline of sustaining the program through facilitation and recruiting facilitators and training those facilitators, as well as recruiter training. They are also collecting data and working with us and collaborating with us in those efforts. And then retaining, one of the things that we ask the school districts is to retain the PIQE branding and related trademarks on all materials. But in short, you are not left alone with the programming. We are very hands-on, and we actually, even after a year, we're sharing our best practices and what we find as best practices with those school districts.
Great. Now we open
it
for
questions
to the group.
Right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Mildred. And with our Hawaii Statewide Family Engagement Center, we wanted to, share what PIQE has to offer. And if there's any interest with that, please do connect with Elizabeth and Mildred, or even connect with us as we can figure out ways to collaborate and partner with folks and exploring these different opportunities. Having had the experience myself when I was in California, I know how amazing this program is in terms of building that relationship with families and schools, and also building really the capacity for families to be able to navigate the school system and navigate these different areas. So please do if you have any questions, please, ask them more. They're here today to provide more information about the program. I certainly learned that there was more available in terms of the social emotional learning component, which we know through the evidence-based practices that when families have built that capacity around their own social emotional learning, does have a really great impact, direct impact in the overall well-being of students, right? And so we do have a question here here in the chat box. How much does the program cost? I think I'll go ahead and defer that to Mildred and Elizabeth.
Sure. So our program, the licensing fee, which would give you the entire curriculum and the full year of coaching, is $85,000, and that gives you licensing for up to 20 schools. So you would be able to share that with 20. It's schools, right? Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
wasn't sure. I know there's different names.
Yes. It's actually for the complex area, but 20 schools within that complex area.
Yes. Yes. And then also that's for the signature program. So that's the signature family engagement program. And then of course we're happy to share the pricing menu that has the different program costs as well. So if you're interested in the early childhood development program, that one is $60,000. But if you purchase it together with the signature program, it's $40,000. So we can share the pricing menu.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And we are not currently working with any Hawaii schools at the moment. So we are excited to be able to engage with you in the future.
I don't know if you mentioned, what are some of the states that you are working with? And I think that some of our colleagues, our fellow statewide family engagement center grants are working with you folks as well.
Mm-hmm. That would be out in Massachusetts.
Yes,
actually.
Massachusetts.
That's where we are engaging now. But yes, we have Massachusetts. We have and now I'm drawing a blank, but
okay,
but
sorry.
No, we've been in New York. We have programming there. We have programming in Minnesota, Texas. I mentioned Massachusetts. We have several. We have over 6 school districts there. I'm drawing a blank.
New Mexico.
New Mexico. Thank you. We're starting that one up soon again. Yes, South Carolina.
And it's amazing because Mildred and I did work together as I was a family involvement coordinator at the time. At Monterey in California, and so it's amazing to see how much the program has expanded since then. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that when I was participating and involved with the program, it was the 9-week program, correct, Mildred? The 9-week,
yes,
the original program. Just seeing the families from session to session grow and building that capacity to advocate, to go and connect with teachers, right? In asking questions about their child's education and understanding how to navigate that. And then also the graduation. I think, I teared up a lot of the graduation and seeing that kind of forum with the school leaders at that time and engaging in a discussion, and then also, celebrating with the families at the end was really really awesome. It was a really nice experience, which kept me in education.
Yes, one of the most touching moments at the graduation is we send all the parents certificates. And so they receive a graduation certificate, a completion of the course certificate. And so many of our parents are so proud to hold up the certificate. And they tell us time and time again, we hear it over and over again, this is the first graduation they've ever been to. Many of our families have not graduated themselves from high school. And so this is the first ceremony that they're able to attend, and they have what we get to see now in the virtual modality is that their students are there with them. And so we'll see the students there and they'll have their certificate. It's a really touching experience. Also, something that came of the virtual, the silver lining in the virtual modality is that in the high school sessions, we see the students sitting with their parents because it's important information for the student. We're talking about college going information, about financial aid resources, about application processes. What do you need to take A through G courses? I'm sorry, college prepared courses.
Yeah.
And so,
I know what you're talking about.
yes, in California we have A through G, but it's college preparation
Different.
courses. And so the students are sitting there side by side with their parent, getting the information as well. And it's been really great to be able to deliver the information both to families and to students and see it live.
And so if there is, anybody that have any further questions, we just have them connect with you folks. And please do, bring us in that conversation so that we are able to help support, how we might be able to support schools and support folks in, looking at the logistical setup and whatnot. But I think it would be very exciting if we did have some interest and had some folks, wanting to explore the different programs that you offer. And it's really nice, the offering of, virtual, and I'm sure you're probably already exploring hybrid types of things too as well. Okay, so I see that Elizabeth has put in contact information here. I'm looking at if there's any other question that folks might have, any wonderings. I will send, we will have the video recording available for folks to access. And then also we will have the slides for folks to go ahead and reference, and their contact information is on there as well. And then Chuan Chin, our principal investigator, director of our program, did put a message in there for folks here in Hawaii. If they have any questions, again, please, and they want to explore this opportunity, we would love to be able to partner up and collaborate with you folks as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having us today. It's been great to be able to share what we've learned and more about PIQE and our programming, and we look forward to working together. We would love to work with the students in Hawaii as well.
Yes, I echo what Elizabeth just mentioned. I am grateful for your time today, and we look forward to working with you. And please reach out any questions that we can provide answers to. We'll be glad to address those.
Thank you. Thank you, Mildred. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us today. Aloha, mahalo.